Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. A lot to discuss. You had J.D. Vance prancing in Disneyland over the weekend. He seems to love to spend his time in California while the Trump regime trashes it. You had Donald Trump stealing the valor of Chelsea Football Club, literally stealing the FIFA club trophy and bringing it to the Oval Office and standing on stage while the players on Chelsea were like, can we get this guy off the stage? Like, why is he there? Because Trump wanted his Kim Jong-un propaganda photo op to make the championship about himself. But Colin, we got to start where everyone's talking about. It's the Epstein files. You probably are like, Ben, why have you been covering the Epstein files like every day on the Midas Touch Network for the last 5 years? And it's because, we've deeply studied what's going on in MAGA world. We knew the connections that were there back in the 1990s and before 2004 between Trump and Epstein. And we knew that Donald Trump was always going to cover it up. It was so obvious to us that that's where he would always get the most nervous about. And so it was obviously something, that should be brought up and should be discussed. So Donald Trump went from at the end of last week saying that the Epstein or the Trump DOJ said the Epstein list doesn't exist. It's not real, never happened. Jeffrey Epstein never kept a list to blackmail rich men. There's no more files. Case closed. We're shutting it down. Then Donald Trump got a lot of heat on a bipartisan basis. The whole country was like, what? The list doesn't exist. Why would Pam Bondi say the list is on her desk and she was going to release it? Why'd you bring the influencers in and give them the phase one binders when there was going to be other phases, even though the phase one binder had all of the old stuff? So then Donald Trump posts over the weekend, no. They do exist, but they were created. Get this, Cohen and Brigaders, by Obama and Clinton and James Comey. They created the list, so it exists, but it's a hoax. And everything about Epstein is a hoax. Russia. So be quiet. That's his explanation. So he writes a post that says that. And then today, when he was heading to Pennsylvania, where he bragged how his uncle was the professor at MIT for the Unabomber. That was his speech today. And he said that we brought in $16 trillion already. Like our entire GDP is under $30 trillion. We didn't bring in $16 trillion already. But here's what he says when he's going on the helicopter, when he's asked, did Bondi tell you your name appeared in the Epstein list? And then he goes, nope, the files are made up by Comey and Obama and Biden. Here, watch this.
Did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No. She's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen. And I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden, we went through years of that with the Russia hoax. With all of the different things that we had to go through, we've gone through years of it. But she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release. Yeah.
On Texas, how many more seats?
The saddest part there, Ben, is there's an answer that he can give regarding Epstein without invoking the Steele dossier, which the Steele dossier, and I've been very open about saying it, was a bunch of bullshit. All right. The Steele dossier doesn't prove anything on Epstein. It's almost like the concept of water and oil, right? They just don't mix no matter how hard you try. And I don't understand where he's trying to weave one into the other. It just doesn't make it. It makes no sense. You said something, Ben, which, if you could join me for a second, which I think is very important. Why has Midas Touch Network been talking so much for so long about the Epstein file? Well, there's really two reasons. The first one is because Midas Touch Network has been number one in terms of journalism, I don't know, now for quite a period of time. Why? Because on MTN, you're getting facts. You turn on the television, nothing pisses me off more than when someone says, well, in my opinion. Who gives a fuck about your opinion, right? See, Ben and I both have law backgrounds. And in law, there's something called documentary evidence. It's where if you're going to use something, you're going to make something, what you do is you make statements that are predicated on facts, not on innuendo, but on facts. There are quite a bit of facts that are here. We do know that there was a relationship between Trump and Epstein. That is inarguable. How do you know it? Because there's dozens and dozens of photographs. Now, does that mean that Trump did something wrong? Well, I don't know. I, like so many other people, would like to see the documents, would like to see the information, would like to see the evidence so that I could speak emphatically and not on my personal opinion or on innuendo. And why they're not releasing it? Well, that's something that at MTN we've been talking about for a long time. They used it, and I have Michael Wolff coming on my Mea Culpa podcast. Nobody knows Jeffrey Epstein better than Michael Wolff. He spent an inordinate amount of time. He was supposed to write a book before Epstein ended up offing himself. And nobody knows Trump better than I. It is truly an incredible conversation based upon reality, based upon real facts, not, again, the innuendo. So, Ben, that's the reason why everybody's talking, because they used it to promote a lie. And what was supposed to be the lie? The lie was that the Epstein files were going to be detrimental to Democrats, right? Like Pizzagate was, when in fact, we have no idea who's on that list. And now, despite all the promises by Trump, by Bondi, by Patel, by Bongino, by Tucker Carlson, by everybody, it doesn't look like they're going to release it at all.
And here's the thing. So assume there's the full pie of the Epstein files is up 100%, right? Full pie. So far, about 10% of the files have been released through civil cases, through criminal cases, through Freedom of Information Act requests. So we have flight logs, but a small portion. We have depositions, but a small amount of the depositions, right? We have some of the legal filings, but not all that much. We have some statements from witnesses, but not all of them. We have some call logs, but not all of them. But from the 10% that exists, as it relates to this period from the 90s to about 2003, 2004, Donald Trump's name is probably the name that appears the most or close to the most. Trump lived a few blocks from Epstein. They were very, very, very close friends. Donald Trump is quoted in New York Magazine saying Epstein's a great guy. He loves to hang out with beautiful women. Many are on the younger side, is what he said. And this is an undisputed fact that we can't ignore, that Mar-a-Lago was used as a grounds where Ghislaine Maxwell would find underage girls to sex traffic. That's just a fact. I'm not like, oh, Ben, you got to be careful what you say. It's a fact. We could dig deeper. What did Donald Trump know or not know about the operation that was taking place, which is why these files should be released. But Virginia Giuffre, underage girl at the time, she was 17 years old and she was homeless, right? Jeffrey Epstein's MO was to go and find homeless girls who were financially destitute, and bring them into a life of princes and luxury and sex trafficking. That was the whole MO of his sex trafficking ring. And so Virginia Giuffre, when she was 17 and homeless, got a job to work at a spa in Mar-a-Lago. She was the towel girl at 17 years old. Undisputed facts. Ghislaine Maxwell goes to Mar-a-Lago, finds Virginia Giuffre as the towel girl, and says, hey, I want to introduce you to Donald's friend. Really rich guy. He likes massages also. You're the towel girl. There may be a career path for you here. I'd love for you to just meet him. She brings Giuffre, Ghislaine brings Giuffre to Jeffrey Epstein. They walk. It's down the block, right, Cohen? I mean, it's like you could walk it in, it's like a 2-minute walk to
You're
get from
talking about, he's talking about the Palm Beach property.
Palm Beach. I mean, it's close to Mar-a-Lago. And then Epstein sex traffics Giuffre as an underage girl. That's the facts there. How many times was that repeated over and over again? Well, we know that Epstein would show up and party at Mar-a-Lago with Trump, in that period from the 90s till about 2004. There's videos of them, doing it together. And then in the flight log, Trump's name appears over and over. In the depositions, it appears over and over. In the black book, it appears over and over. In the call log, it appears over and over. And so, the point can be, well, what is this data telling us? What should we think about this data? I think I can make a very compelling case, in my opinion, what went down. But I think what we've always just asked for on the Midas Touch Network is just show us the data in general, whether it's Epstein or whatever, right? Show me the evidence. Let me read it. Then I'll form an opinion on it that I'll share with the audience. But let me go through the depositions. Let me go through the evidence. Let me read the court filings, and then people can assess. But what we're hearing right now is here's what Pam Bondi said today. So you heard Trump's statement where he said, it's Obama created it. And Comey and Biden came up with the Epstein list. By the way, Cohen, doesn't that now give a golden ticket to Ghislaine Maxwell to ask for
So I said that to Michael Wolff. It's one of the topics that I wanted his response to. She's charged with trafficking. To who? So far, the answer is to no one, because they won't release the names. They won't release the information. So who did she sex traffic? Well, we know the names of the young ladies, but we don't know to whom. And that's what the entire charge is about. So either remove that charge as against her or provide the documentation with the names. That, to me, is the way the system. There's no reason why these documents should be hidden. I mean, there's no reason that somebody should be charged with information that could be exculpatory or the convincing documentary evidence that the prosecutors needed. I mean, I don't understand how the system is operating anymore. I also don't understand why there are so many Republicans who have been protesting the refusal to release these documents, whether they are the far right wing of the MAGA party or the middle of the road Republicans. They voted not to release the documents. I truly just don't understand, because I don't think that people are going to, and again, this is just an opinion, I don't think people are going to be satisfied with the information that would be released as it relates to Trump. I know I have to believe that there are many, many names in there of people who are probably very well known that would be very concerned about the release, but tough shit. You're involved. Well, here you go. Here's the information. But how about stop making the rest of us speculate? Stop with the innuendo. It's very simple. Just release the info. It's just that simple. And by the way, you don't have to worry about the damage that it could do to Jeffrey Epstein. The guy took his life. He's not around.
It would be very easy. What you would just do is redact the names of the victims. Nobody wants to see victim names. Nobody wants to see photos of victims. So we all agree, redact all of that. But as it relates to everything else, release it. And look, I know where the documents are, because if you follow the case, the Ghislaine Maxwell case, they had to try her based on evidence, right? So they clearly had files, and a lot of the files were under seal because a lot of the conduct related to minors, there was designations like Jane Doe. So in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, we know that there was a 14-year-old Jane Doe girl who was introduced to Trump by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and she was known as a Jane Doe. In the civil cases involving Epstein, Donald Trump is Doe 174. So not only would I know where the documents are, but I would also know surgically, if I had a case against Donald Trump, exactly where the Trump documents are. Produce all the records related to Doe 174, that's Donald Trump. Produce the grand jury under seal testimony regarding Jane Doe, the 14-year-old girl who was introduced to Donald Trump there. There have been a number of victims who have made statements saying that they were brought into Epstein's office building, and then they saw Trump in the office building, and then Trump would look them up and down, and then, and then Epstein would say, no, that one's not for you. Yours is in there. That was what one of the trafficking victims, had said. So that's what the victim said. I'd want to see the files relating to all of that. And by the way, Pam Bondi, who's currently the Attorney General of the United States, she was the Attorney General of Florida for a lot of the period when there was a prosecution against Epstein. Epstein entered into a NPA, a non-prosecution agreement, with a guy named Alex Acosta, who was Donald Trump's first labor secretary, who used to be the United States attorney in the Southern District of Florida. And that non-prosecution agreement said the feds aren't going to prosecute you anywhere, Epstein, which then the SDNY said we're not going to listen to that, because that only bound him to the Southern District of Florida, not to the Southern District of New York. That's how Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were tried in New York, even though there was a non-prosecution agreement by that guy Alex Acosta on behalf of the Southern District of Florida, which says that the NPA, the non-prosecution agreement, applies across the United States. So that's what Ghislaine Maxwell, by the way, is appealing to the United States Supreme Court. She says that non-prosecution agreement said all district courts across the country. That should have been SDNY. It's not my fault that Alex Acosta violated the Department of Justice rules and agreed that the non-prosecution agreement includes SDNY. It included co-conspirators. She said, I'm a co-conspirator, so I should be included. But the non-prosecution agreement deferred prosecution to Pam Bondi, to the Attorney General of Florida, who took no action. And that was part of the two-step. That the Fed said, we're not going to prosecute you, but the state can. And then Epstein had relationships at the state that they weren't going to prosecute him, so the statute of limitations would expire. And that was Pam Bondi, who was there during the expiration of the statute of limitations.
One of the funny things, Ben, is people ask me all the time, do you want these files to come out, or would you rather that they don't? And I ask them, is there something mentally wrong with you? Right? I have been very emphatic that I believe that the documents should be released, unredacted, at least to members of Congress, which, by the way, would ultimately get leaked anyway, but they should be released to the American people, unredacted. Why do I want this? I don't know whether, people are just plain stupid, or they enjoy the conspiracy theory, or they just don't know how to logically think. There's something called critical thinking. Like, we have a guy that's trying to troll us, Bill Ressinger, that's here in our chat. Turns around, Cohen knows everything. He saw it all. Well, Bill, let me turn around and give you a lesson. We're going to call it a math lesson. And you're probably saying to yourself, what does math have to do with this? Well, I'm going to give you the answer. First and foremost, the time period that Donald Trump was involved and friendly, to whatever extent that friendship existed, was like the late 80s, 1988 to allegedly 2004. Okay? That's allegedly the period that Michael Wolff explained to me that they had a relationship. 1988, schmuck. I just finished college. Okay? So one thing I can assure you, I wasn't in the position as executive vice president and special counsel to Donald Trump in 1988. Oh, yeah, had you had half a clue Please understand, I joined the Trump Organization in 2007, but I had done some legal work for Trump, literally dating back to the very end of 2005. Oh yeah, that would be a year after the relationship between the two of them broke up. So then the problem is his stupidity gets compounded only by others, by like this young lady, Liz, who's sitting in here. So, well, Cohen, don't leave Cohen alone. He's just trying to protect his family. Let me again be very clear that when the relationship and allegedly a lot of this sex trafficking and a lot of the underage parties were taking place was around 1992. Let me turn around and remind you, in 1992, I had just been admitted to the New York State Bar. It's around the time Ben was born. Okay? So I'm trying to give you mathematical equivalence into why what it is that you're saying is untrue and stupid. I wasn't there. I wasn't a party to it. I have no firsthand knowledge as you would like me to do. And I promise you that if I did, that information would already have been given to one of the 7 congressional committees that asked me questions on this specific issue. Okay? Just so now I'm trying to finally put a stop to the stupidity and this is why it is so important. It's why it is so important that they do release the documents. All right? They release the documents so all of this innuendo, all of this speculation, all of these conspiracy theories come to an end. And if in fact it's only one of 2 issues, and Hakeem Jeffries, right, Captain Obvious brought it out yesterday at one of his podium speeches, either MAGA was lying to you, the American people, or somebody is named in there that is problematic to either MAGA, the GOP, or Trump himself. Okay, so all of these wild, stupid speculations and conspiracy theories, the problem by not releasing the documents is all it does is escalate the stupidity. So in conclusion, Bill, let me be very clear. I have zero firsthand knowledge as it relates to any of this. In fact, I was very careful in saying, and I will continue to be, because the second that I turn around and say something which is inaccurate or untruthful, it ruins my credibility. And I have no issue and no interest in that happening. Plain and simple. So to Congress, ensure that they release the documents. To President Trump, release it. Do the right thing. Clear your name if your name is to be cleared. Plain and simple.
You know, I want to show 2 things. First, Pam Bondi, where she goes, you know, look, the memo that we wrote, which, by the way, no one signed their name to, she goes, the memo speaks for itself. That's the memo that says the Epstein list doesn't exist and they're not releasing any files and the investigations are now shut down. Here's what she said today during a press conference at the DOJ offices. Let's play it.
The president said today you would release credible files related to Mr. Epstein. Are you prepared to do that, and when would you do that?
Our memo speaks for itself, and we'll get back to you on anything else. I haven't seen all of his statements today. Thank you.
Now, which also just shows that they're completely unaligned. He goes out there and says what he wants. She goes out and says her thing. And there's a broader issue here that I want to spend some time talking about. But first, let me just show everybody the moment that the GOP voted to block even the debate. They voted to block the debate on whether to release the Epstein files. So we didn't even get to the vote, release or not release. They said, we do not discuss it here in the House of Representatives. These were the people who had been talking about it most. You know, the MAGA Republicans over and over again. Now they're saying, we don't even want to have a debate. Just so everybody can see it, let's bring out the receipts and play it.
On this vote, the yeas are 211, the nays are 210. The previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
211 to 210. I mean, imagine that one. 211 to 210. That there's not a handful or even two members of the Republican Party that want to know the truth. What happened to that far right MAGA group? Where are they? Right? The MAGA caucus. Where are all of these brave jerk-offs that get in front of these gilded podiums and they start turning around and talking shit because they thought that this was going to be something catastrophic to the Democrats, to Joe Biden, to Barack Obama, to whoever it is, in the Democratic Party? What happened to all of those? Yeah, I'm with you. Cowards, spineless, feckless cowards. In fact, I'm going to do something right now that I have not done. Hey, Ben, do you know, by the way, do you know how many episodes you and I have done so far here on Political Beatdown?
I'm going to guess 300.
253 is, I think, my count on that. And so I am going to do something I have not done in 253 previous episodes. Before the end of this program was when I normally give the two-finger salute. Two-finger salute, 100% goes to the feckless, spineless, scumbag Republican members of Congress who voted, all 211 of them, who turned around and were trying to use this within which to damage the Democratic Party in order to, enhance this MAGA movement, in order to capitulate to the president and to the memos that were coming out of people like Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon and a handful. Who else was part of that group? Dan Bongino at the time, or Kash Patel. We're so sick of the lies. And that's why it's so important to go only to places that are telling you the truth, like right here on Midas Touch Network. So to all of the 211 feckless fuckers, fuck you all.
There's a broader issue too, because to me, the Epstein ordeal, I think, opens up a window, hopefully, for some of the MAGA followers to go, wait a minute. He thinks we're just very stupid and that we will just listen to absolutely anything. Wait, you're saying Obama created the Epstein list and the whole thing is a hoax? It was an Obama thing? Wait a minute. Are you saying that all these other things, Russia, wait a minute. Is this what you've done to us all along here? And that's kind of been me stepping into politics, Cohen, is that I never really liked politics. As a lawyer, I liked logic and evidence, and I liked, making cogent arguments. But like, my view always has been just the behavior of this MAGA movement at one level is not the behavior of grown-ups. Like, it's not the behavior of adults. Start at that level. It is the behavior of just like, it's just gross and reprehensible, and it's always a cover up, and it's always a lie on top of a lie, and there's no lie that they're not willing to spread. And so I've always approached it like, just tell me the facts, please. And so, like, we all know that these tariffs are going to cause inflation, and so it wasn't a shocker when we saw the inflation data this month, that finally it's being reflected in the data, and that the core inflation rose 2.9% last month, and just the other inflation metric was 2.7% up from the prior month. And if you go and look at the goods where prices are more expensive, like we know it, because if we're not part of a cult and we go into stores and we buy orange juice or cookware or linens or toys or coffee, we go, whoa, that got a little more expensive, didn't it? And that's what's reflected in the data, across the board: durable goods, linens, oranges, olives, cookware, audio equipment, major appliances, coffee, sports equipment, toys are surging in costs. And it's a direct result of Donald Trump's disastrous trade war against the world. Like, what do you think is going to happen if you impose a 50% tariff on Brazil, where we get a lot of our coffee and other important stuff from Brazil? Like,
The answer is I'm going to be really pissed.
what do you think is going to happen when we screw around with, tomatoes from Mexico, or we screw around with
Avocados and whatever.
when we screw around with lumber from Canada? Like, what do you think is going to happen when we screw around with the technology from Japan, and we screw around with our relationship with the European Union? What do you think is going to happen here? And like, what do you think is going to happen when we do what the Trump regime did on Friday, where they fired 1,300 people from the State Department, like career diplomats who had worked there their whole life, who developed expertise in regions? Like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, what was the point of firing them? Because it's not like it's reducing the deficit. It's not like this is like a tech company where their jobs are replaced by, AI, which is still not cool for me. But like, it's not like a 7,000 person tech company where the largest expenditure, is labor. The smallest expenditure for the US government is the labor, which is also the most valuable, right? The biggest expenditures are in federal government are Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, programs like that. But you're going to go after the State Department employees? Like, don't you realize that like what that's going to open up a lane for is China to go into Africa, and to go into Asia, go into other areas in Southeast Asia that America was aligned with? Like, what the whole world is changing before our eyes. And in America, we have state regime media, Fox. Then you have corporate news, who's like not reporting on these seismic shifts in the world order that's currently taking place, and how weak the United States of America has become. In this period since the inauguration, America's lost its standing in the world. That's not me being hyperbolic. America is a weak international player right now, relative, or if you don't want to say they're weak, you could make an argument. We live in a multipolar world. America is one of the polarities, but you have China, Russia, European Union, and Canada, and kind of Australia, the Commonwealth nations, the BRICS bloc aligning with, the China, Africa, Russia. It's a very different world in a short period of time.
Yeah, Ben, wouldn't it be easier if they just told the American people the truth? Right? Wouldn't we then have almost nothing to talk about? Think about it. What if he turned around and he said that our spending as a country is out of control, and as a direct result, we need to make some cost cuts. We need to reduce the deficit. It is unsustainable. I think most of us, if not all of us, would say, well, that's true. So we will have to tighten the purse strings where it's going to be helpful. Places you don't do that to are places like food stamps, SNAPs. You don't do it to children, like what they just did by gutting over 1,400 jobs at the Department of Education. You just don't do it. Some of those jobs at the DOE deal with children who have learning issues. And so now you're going to take away their additional assistance so that they could become functioning members of society, right? You're going to penalize children. And at the end of the day, what's the benefit? How much money are you cutting? You know what may be a good place to actually do it? How about cutting out some of the expenses in the military? $1 trillion fucking dollars, $1 trillion a year. How about cutting out Department of Homeland Security that now has, I don't know, a budget which is bigger than some third world countries? How about things like that don't affect the quality of life, that you're not going to take away Medicare, Medicaid from from our elderly or from those who need the assistance the most. Just think about how much different things would be right now during this conversation if they would just tell the truth. They would just use their brains, use their seichel in order to turn around and to say, this is America, this is who we are, and we're not going to change our values, but what we are going to do is, well, I don't know, we have, let's say, 150 F-15 fighter planes. Do we need 25? Maybe, but not today. Wouldn't that make more sense, Ben?
Then getting rid of education, and then getting rid of, health that keeps people, healthcare that keeps people alive. I mean, what are we cutting?
I don't know.
The National Weather Service, so we're not going to be able to know when storms are hitting. Like, I just look at it, and this is where I go, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. What weather forecasting is woke now? Federal emergency management, that's too woke right now. And so you come to this conclusion that where all of this stems from, including the Epstein files, is the malignant narcissism of someone with a God complex. And it's the same thing in COVID. I alone can fix it. Why do I need these people? Why do I need those people? Why do we need a chairman of the Federal Reserve? I sit on top of the mountain. I will divine what the outcome is going to be. And if people die, then I just say it didn't happen.
I mean, is it so hard, Ben, for them to even acknowledge that gas is not at $1.99 anywhere in the United States? It's not. AAA put it out there. It's like $3.15 is the national average. There is no place in this country where it's $1.99. On top of that, there is nowhere in California that the price is $7 a gallon. But they make these overt statements that are just emphatically wrong. And the worst part is that they are easily provable. That's the beauty of Google. Just go in. He's talking about how much is the price of gas. Just type in AAA gas prices, and look it up for yourself. It is not $1.99, $1.98, up to $1.95, he said. It's approximately, the national average is $3.15. So, Randy, if you're paying $3.29, okay, you're paying 14 cents more. But then he goes on and he has to give a jab, say, for example, to Gavin Newsom. California, $7 a gallon. And that's because even though the price went down, they constantly need to more money in order to, because the governor of California is an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so they just keep adding on taxes and taxes. There is not $6 worth of taxes on gasoline in the state of California. And this is so easy. It's so easy to look up. But there's still a group of Americans that no matter what he says, if he told you that gasoline was free, if he told you that eggs were 4 cents or 5 cents an egg, these people would believe it. And they will fight you to the death and saying, I heard the president say that eggs are 5 cents a piece. You turn around and you say, all right, here's $1. Go bring me 20 eggs. Go. Show me what you can do. Actually, here's $2. All right? Make it, bring me 20 eggs. Good luck.
We'll take our first and only quick break of the show. A reminder, everybody subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Subscribe to his audio podcast, Mea Culpa. As he mentioned, Michael Wolff will be joining him. That is a must-see interview. We're going to be getting a lot of clips of that as well. Wolff was going to be Epstein's biographer, and he was Donald Trump's biographer, and was specifically told by Trump's team, do not ask Trump questions about Epstein. It's the one area that was off limits during the writing of Trump's biography, is what Wolff told me. Also, subscribe here, and I'm feeling my back's good.
My Substack.
And by the way, Substack as well. Michael
thanks
Cohen.
to MTN for constantly putting up on their Substack platform. I mean, it's truly appreciated because, again, this network, it's where you need to go to for truth.
Let's take that quick break. We'll be right back.
I love going out with friends, unwinding at the end of a long day. But I don't always want to wake up feeling like I got hit by a truck. So lately, I've been reaching for something better. Sol's out-of-office gummies. I mean, these things are a game changer. You get the light social buzz with no hangover, no empty calories, no guilt. I took the perfect buzz strength, and I got to say, it mellowed me out. It lifted my mood, and it gave me a little creative kick without turning my brain to mush. I still felt like me, just a little lighter, a little looser, and more present. And let me tell you, Sol is all about wellness without the weirdness. Everything is made from organically farmed, USA grown hemp. It's vegan, gluten-free, and it's low in sugar. Their out-of-office line, it even comes in 4 strengths, so you can dial it up or down depending on the vibe you want. And now they've got a new out-of-office beverage. It's an alcohol-free summer sipper that's refreshing and still gives you that mellow lift. So why not skip the booze and the hangovers and treat yourself to something smarter? And right now, Sol is offering my audience 30% off your entire order. So go to getsol.com and use code BEAT. That's getsol.com, GETSOUL.com, promo code BEAT for 30% off. Bring on the good vibes. You know what? You've earned them. All right, so picture this. I'm on my way out the door, trying to look halfway respectable for a meeting, and boom. Marlo, you know, you've heard Marlo, my neighbor's cat, sprawled across the hallway like he pays rent. Cute little furball, right? Wrong, because 5 minutes later, I'm sneezing like I just walked through a field of ragweed in a wind tunnel. I mean, I don't even own a cat, and I'm still dealing with cat allergens. The whole thing is just totally unreal. This episode of Political Beatdown is brought to you by Pacgin. Now, if you've got a cat, or in my case, a neighbor's cat who thinks he's mine, you don't have to surrender your sinuses to the feline overlords. You see, almost 20% of people suffer from cat allergens, and 3 in 4, they're not thrilled with the so-called solutions that are out there. That's where Pacgin steps in. Pacgin's cat allergen neutralizing spray, it's like sending a tactical team into your living room. And it doesn't mess with your immune system. It goes straight after the actual allergens in your home, and it breaks them down with no pills, no shots, no voodoo, just science. You see, it turns out that the problem isn't the fur. It's the saliva. Cats groom like it's their job. And Fel D1, that's the protein behind most cat allergens. It's all over their adorable faces. Now, Pacgin's patent-pending whisker block protein, it binds and it neutralizes these Fel D1. No harsh chemicals, no side effects. I literally sprayed some around last week before my buddy who dropped by. And he's one of those that I'll die if I breathe near a cat type. And for literally the first time, no red eyes, no wheezing, just him wondering if Marlo had moved out of the building. It's effective, safe, and made for people who love their pets or their neighbor's pets, but not the sneezing fits. Got a dog? Dust allergies? Pacgin's got sprays for that too. I love that they're not trying to trick your immune system. They're just handling the source of the problem. Smart, simple, and safe for both people and pets. Your pets aren't just pets. They're family, right? So get the relief you need with Pacgin. Head right now to pacgin.com/beat for an extra 25% off your order and an exclusive gift for our listeners at checkout. That's pacgen.com/beat for an extra 25% off your order and an exclusive gift. One last time, Pacgen, pacgen.com/beat for an extra 25% off and a gift auto apply to checkout. Because listen, if I can live peacefully with Marlo, you can live peacefully with your pets too.
Great ad reads there, Michael Cohen. You can support our sponsors by going to the description below. We've got the discount codes. Jordy spends a long time negotiating those discounts, and Cohen does a great read. And because
you'll save a lot of money on not having to buy antihistamine.
And we have no outside investors, so it supports the show. It supports the network. Check it out. A few data points I want to show. Start off with hypocrisy. Then let's talk about weakness. And then let's talk about grift and corruption. First, the hypocrisy. J.D. Vance partying in Disneyland in California. He previously was in San Diego. He's basically spent the entire summer vacationing in California as the Trump regime rips families apart in the state of California, attacks our state, withholds funds from our state here in California. But J.D. Vance brings his family to Disneyland and San Diego to enjoy our tourist attractions here. Here, play this clip of him running. I think he's got to prance to the bathroom here or something. Here, play this clip. Yep, that's how alphas run for sure. That's the
right.
That's the alpha. That's the alpha one, right?
He's as swift as a gazelle there.
Right. But here's the thing. California is a donor state. It contributes $80 billion more to the federal government than it takes in, versus, say, Texas, which takes in $50 billion more from the federal government than it gives. The blue states make up 75% of the entire United States economy, literally subsidizing failed red states. That's just the facts, that the blue states are subsidizing the failed red states. If you created a country made up of red states, it would look like, like Viktor Orban's Hungary, or it would look like Argentina. It would be a place with massive inflation, with horrible economies, and it would be very problematic. Yet they continue to attack California and the blue states that fund their states, and then they party in our states. They party in California. So you've got that. You've got then corporate news and Fox propaganda news praising Donald Trump this week because, like, oh, Trump's now being tough on Russia. He's finally doing it. He's being tough. And I'm like, did I miss something? Well, what's tough about this announcement? He says he's giving Putin 50 more days to do I don't know what. Well, I'll tell you what in a second. Or else then Donald Trump will consider secondary sanctions against Russia. Didn't Trump say he was going to end the war in 24 hours? Here, but watch this.
But we thought we had a deal. Numerous times I'd get home, I'd say, First Lady, I had the most wonderful talk with Vladimir. And one of the reasons that you're here today is to hear that we are very unhappy, I am, with Russia. But we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means. But today we're going to talk about something else. And as you know, we've spent $350 billion approximately on this war with Russia and Ukraine, and would like to see it end. It wasn't my war, it was Biden's war.
Okay, blaming Biden. It's called secondary sanctions, not secondary tariffs. He goes, we're not going to talk about it today. That's literally the topic. The topic was you were supposed to do secondary sanctions against Russia today. America barely does any trade at all with Russia, although Donald Trump's regime has removed the sanctions from a lot of Russian banks, which allow them to evade these sanctions, hence the need for the secondary sanctions, because we're creating the loopholes by removing the sanctions from the banks in the first place that launder for the oligarchs. But Trump said there'd be peace in 24 hours. He said there'd be peace. And why is it 50 days? Go back and look at the coverage of what went down on July 3rd when Trump spoke to Putin. Then Putin said he needed 60 days in order to complete his summer offensive against Ukraine to conquer certain territories. So if you go back to the 3rd and you add 11 days plus 1, you get the 50 days that Donald Trump just put right there. So he gave Putin what he wanted plus 1 day, but no one reports it like that. They're like, oh, Trump said this. I mean, Cohen, anytime something starts with Trump said, that's probably going to be a false headline. Well, why do we keep on listening to what this guy said, who lies about literally everything?
Well, we listen to him because he's the president of the United States, and what he says actually matters. What bothers me is what's going to occur over the course of the next 50 days is going to be a pounding on Ukraine like greater than the actions that are currently taking place. I mean, Putin is going to turn around. Well, Donald, you gave me 50 days. All right. Let's wait to see what happens in 50 days. And then all of a sudden they're going to be like, oops, sorry, Ukraine is now completely devastated and destroyed. When he's talking about these secondary sanctions, and you're right, they're not secondary tariffs. What he's referring to is that they're going to put sanctions on countries that are doing business with Russia, thinking that, okay, China, who is now supplying Russia with armaments and missiles and drones and so on, they're going to stop because they don't want to lose the United States as a trading partner. This is not the answer. And whoever it is that's guiding him, again, so much of this is simply because the people who he had placed into positions of power, those that were nominated and then confirmed, they are ill-equipped and incompetent at the positions that they're asked. They lack the experience, they lack the requisite knowledge, and they are afraid to potentially tell Trump what it is that he needs to hear. And this, my friends, is the result.
Yeah, so then Donald Trump has the faith meeting at the White House yesterday. You have Paula White, lives in a massive mansion from the tax-exempt status of the church. A lot of Christians say that she's a false teacher because she just basically, like she'll sell. If you want to get the blessings of God, you need to buy these eggs for $1,000 on Easter. My secret Easter eggs you're going to get rich from. And I guess if you can convince someone to do that, you can pretty much convince them whatever Donald Trump is saying is true. But she also goes around and she does these sermons in gibberish. And she's like, nah, that's just, I'm feeling it from God. And she's like, Hesha, Usha, Mana, Usha, Ushka, Mana, Misha, Mana, Misha. Here, this is what she does here. This is her shtick. Here, let's play it.
Mahanda rabosoko, mahanda akasata, reke yamanda raboko sokota, ronda yakande eke seke la mama manda rabakase, meta rabakande la babakaso, yala mananya no sakayato yakande, ya makato yabatadia sitia kano yakatara sitia.
Like if you fall for that, I can see how people can fall for Trump. Those weren't real words. That wasn't Latin. That was just made up gibberish. Oh, semana, lushimana, mumu, shiman, shimun, shimana, shmish, mish, mish. But so they then bring it. Give me $1,000 for my eggs. You want $1,000 eggs here? Just watch her sell these eggs on Easter for $1,000. You got to watch this.
And I believe that when you honor God on Passover, starting on April 12th at sundown through Good Friday on the 18th and concluding on Easter Sunday, you can receive these 7 supernatural blessings for you and your house. According to Exodus 23, God will assign an angel to you. He'll be an enemy to your enemies. He'll give you prosperity. He'll take sickness away from you. He will give you long life. He'll bring increase in inheritance, and he'll give a special year of blessing. You're not doing this to get something, but you're doing it in honor to God, realizing what you can receive.
For your special Passover offering of $1,000 or more as the Holy Spirit leads, you will also receive the beautiful 10-inch Waterford Crystal Cross. Don't miss your moment to release 7 supernatural blessings and provision into your life.
Wait. So you're not getting anything. You're getting prosperity, you're getting an angel, you're getting long life, and so on. It's a good thing that you're not getting anything. I actually happen to know Paula. I know her very, very well. In fact, we live in the same building, by the way, here in New York, which is how Trump ultimately met her in the first place. She's actually funny as hell, to be honest with you. The fact that she could get up there and make up all of those words, Ben, I would like to see you try to do it. It's not as easy as it looks. She's got to be. I actually thought maybe she was speaking something like Portuguese or something like that, but I know that she doesn't speak Portuguese. I mean, it actually sounds like a real language, but you're right. She's just making up words as she's going along, and she's doing it just flawlessly, almost like not even repeating. You got to give her credit for that. I wouldn't give her $1,000 for it, but maybe I'd give her $5.
Then you see, I'll end with this though, because then at the White House, at this faith luncheon, Donald Trump is telling the story about how he gets on the phone with Vladimir Putin, and he believes that there's going to be a negotiation after this call with Putin. And Trump's like, I go back in, I tell my wife, I tell Melania, I just had this wonderful call with Putin. I think things are going to be good. And Melania says, no, darling, he just bombed a nursing home and killed everybody in this Ukrainian area. And then the crowd and Donald Trump, they laugh like it's like a they
It's
laugh
a comedy cafe.
as though this is like, and like the laugh track. You ever remember those videos where they put in like the laugh track into areas where there shouldn't be a laugh track? So watch what happens here. And it's like, you're talking about Putin sending ballistic missiles, killing dozens of people in a nursing home. And that's like the comedy routine that they're doing at the White House. Here, play this clip.
But we thought we had a deal. Numerous times I'd get home, I'd say, First Lady, I had the most wonderful talk with Vladimir. I think we're finished. And then I'll turn on the television, or she'll say to me one time, wow, that's strange because they just bombed a nursing home. I said, what? So.
You know, better than even that shtick in the comedy routine was his routine on his friends that were there, who's an ugly guy who's married to a beautiful woman, where she treats him almost like a labubu because she's tall and he's short, right? So it's a Palm Beach 30-some-odd-year-old married to like an 80-year-old labubu, and she walks him around that if he lost his money, and the humor into it and the comic relief that these people started clapping and laughing about. I'm with you on it, Ben. It's stupid and it's pathetic.
Well, they go, you know, my friend, very ugly man, very rich, married to a much younger woman, trophy wife, love each other. Not really, don't actually like each other at all. But the budget bill, I told him, I said, you better hope that the budget bill passes or else she's going to leave you. And he's like, I will make sure that this budget bill passes. And everyone's like, oh, and I'm like, what? I'm like, what Twilight Zone world are we in? I guess one where people go, you know, and I guess that's the world. I mean, I guess there's a constituency for that. But I prefer to live in a world of reality. I prefer to live in a world of empathy, and I prefer to live in a world of facts where we can help people and speak to people with actual things that are happening. Anyway, that's what we're going to do here on the Midas Touch Network and Political Beatdown. So Cohen's already given the two-finger salute in the first half. First time he's done that in 253 episodes. Well done. I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Mea Culpa audio podcast. He's got that great interview coming up with Michael Wolff, who is going to be the biographer for Epstein and was Trump's biographer. And Cohen and Wolff together, wow, that's an interview I want to watch. Also, make sure you subscribe to Michael Cohen's Substack. And Michael Cohen also writes occasionally for the Midas Touch Substack. So subscribe to both. Michael Cohen's YouTube channel is at The Michael Cohen Show. Check that out. And I'm feeling good now with my back. So patreon.com/political beatdown. Cohen, why don't you, seriously, a lot of people were asking your advice that you gave me from my back issues, and other people had back issues. I noticed in the comments, people were wondering, hey, what was your advice to Ben? Maybe you could write a little blip, not on the Substack, on the Patreon, about the back advice, because there's a lot of people, I think, who may.
I'll tell you what, I will write it and I will send it to you and the boys, and I'm going to let you put it up on our Patreon.
Put it up on both. Yeah, I'll put it up on everything. You know, let people read it, not just Patreon. I'll try to put it up. Why don't you call it "My Advice That Helped Ben's Back" and then write about it? How it came to. Let's tell the real story. I called you with pain.
Ben's broken back gets better.
By Michael Cohen.
By me.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching this episode of Political Beatdown. We appreciate you, and we will see you on the next one.
Boom.